Hi, everybody. It's high noon, as always, on Friday. It's time for Once Upon a Time in Spaghetti Westerns, the podcast. I'm Jay Jennings. I am a poster collector, and over a gentleman to my right is Mr. Tom Betts.
Me.
He's reminding you, Tom.
I lost my poncho.
Right? Tom's sporting.
I shaved my beard.
He's done. He's hit the barbershop, and he killed all the three guys who told him to leave town, right? And he only used 3 bullets. Right.
Back to normal.
So Tom is sporting a Clue of Who, our special tribute show is about today. That's right, Tom. It's about the one, the only Lee Van Cleef. LVC, Tom.
LVC.
Right? We've done tributes to other great spaghetti Western stars. We thought, once Tom made that decision, 1,000 followers, we'd have the Mike Malloy show.
Yep.
So who's Mike Malloy, folks? Well, very talented actor, director, filmmaker, producer of albums.
Author.
And author, of course, of a great book. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Hi there. So, Jay Jennings, nice to meet you. Tom, I go way back with. Tom, I met him in 1996 or 1997.
Tom's answering. It's
this is so well timed.
Quentin Tarantino calls me every week, at this time, because he knows where he can find me. I keep dodging him.
So I met Tom in 96 or 97, and I got my book deal to write the Lee Van Cleef book in 95 at age of 19. I remember exactly, I had just submitted the manuscript in 96, and then I somehow get connected with this Tom Betts guy, some kind of spaghetti Western crank named Tom Betts. And so in traditional publishing, a book manuscript will sit in line for like 9 months or a year before any editor even looks at it. And so I met Tom right after I submitted the manuscript, and Tom had this wealth of information, because he had, fallen in love with spaghetti Westerns in real time as they were happening, and fallen in love with Lee Van Cleef in real time as his career exploded. And so Tom had all this information, and I contacted my publisher and was like, hey guys, I know I turned in the manuscript, but can I slip in 1 or 2 extra things, please? Because I met this Tom Betts fella, and they were basically like, Tom Betts, yeah, stop the presses.
Yeah, right.
No, it was interesting because I met all these guys that were, guys who are kind of, middle-aged. Here I was 19, and all these guys middle-aged who had, like I said, experienced Lee Van Cleef fandom in real time, and they all had something kind of like what Tom Betts had. Here is Tom Betts's. This was Tom Betts's manuscript/book hybrid that he had written.
Not a better book besides yours on the subject.
So that is Tom Betts. Tom Betts is not a writer bum like me. Tom Betts had a real job, but as a side kind of thing, he and a lot of these other guys had either written or wanted to write a Lee Van Cleef book. So here I felt like the Johnny-come-lately upstart who kind of was stealing the thunder of all these guys who had always wanted to write a Lee Van Cleef book. But I guess we will say I was standing on the shoulders of giants.
No, it's a great book. I haven't finished it, but I love it. And it's I think the book outside of that radical spaghetti Westerns, and they got Lee on the cover. I think they mentioned Lee maybe on 1 page, but it's all political and psychological. But yours, if you want to know about the guy, but you weren't really a fan at first, were you? You had to rent some VHSs first, right, Mike?
Well, the story of me falling in love with or discovering Lee Van Cleef is actually kind of boring because it's the same movie that turned me on to him that almost everybody,
Which
I'm
one
sure.
was that?
That was for a few dollars more. And, then you get the other ones that were easy to discover, like Good, Bad, and the Ugly. And then you go through your father's VHS collection and you see Liberty Valance and High Noon. But so I would like to fast forward to like the real pivotal moment, not only in my Van Cleef fandom, but also probably just in my professional career. And that's when I was face to face in Walmart as a 15-year-old with two VHS. It was going to be it was going to be my first non-Sergio Leone spaghetti Western purchase. And I was looking at Day of Anger, and I was looking at Captain Apache on VHS. And, Day of Anger.
Which curtain was it, Mike? Curtain number 1, number 2, or number 3?
Well, they were both terrible budget copies, but one was a good movie and one was a bad movie. And I picked Day of Anger. So what do you guys think would have happened to my Van Cleef fandom if my first experience with a non-Leone spaghetti Western was Captain Apache?
I thought it was Kid Vengeance. Okay.
We still have the binders is what we'd have.
That would be the definitive. That would be the definitive Van Cleef book.
It is. So. It's a tome like you've never seen before. Yeah. Thank God I saw Kid Vengeance second. If I would have saw it first, I'm just kidding, of course. That would have turned anybody off anything. Kid
Vengeance was quite a bummer because I was able to buy a lot of budget VHS. There was only in VHS, there was a non-sell-through version of VHS sometimes it was like rental grade. It was meant for the shops. It was meant for the stores. They did not sometimes have a retail version for the consumer. And that was the only time I had to pay that non-sell-through price. I paid $65 for Kid Vengeance on VHS.
How many people did that out there?
Premium price for one of the worst Van Cleef movies.
Right. Yep. Well, of course, this is the main role among many that he's known for. So was it this? What was the film that you saw? When did you decide, okay, I'm going to write a book on Lee Van Cleef? Oh, I forgot. Was this before or after you got a glance at Tom's tome, so to speak?
It was before because I contacted Mr. Betts, or I was put in touch with Mr. Betts after I'd already submitted the manuscript.
All right, I got it.
So these are the days before the internet.
Yeah.
So that was another problem that Mike had, was doing all this stuff. Like I put the fanzine together, writing letters and going to the library and looking at film books to find his filmography, and like he said, hunting video stores and looking through video catalogs to find it. And so I had no idea who Mike Malloy was, and who put us together was Tom Prickett, because Tom and I had started working on Lee Van Cleef for a number of years, and Tom Prickett had contact with a family that was neighbors of Lee Van Cleef in Somerville, New Jersey. And he'd drive there and interview them and make contacts and round up copies of the newspaper, because whenever Lee came home to visit his mom, one of the reporters would run down and interview him. So all that kind of stuff was done by hand in those days, but I didn't know who Mike was until Tom Prickett told me that he had run into Mike, and Mike was writing this book. So that's where we got together.
I think we have slightly different versions on that. Tom, I agree. Tom is an amazing Lee Van Cleef resource, so there's no disagreement there. Tom is one of the greatest Lee Van Cleef collectors of all time, but it was actually halfway around the world, Tom Betts, that you and I were connected, because it was a Turkish man by the name of Cenk.
Cenk Karel. Okay.
Yeah, Cenk put me in touch with you, and Cenk would call me what I guess was a normal time, his time in Turkey, and what was in the middle of the night, my time. And I would pick up the phone groggy, and he would be like, yes, I would just like to speak about Lee Van Cleef. But no, his fandom was appreciated. His enthusiasm was appreciated.
Okay, well, listen, we're honored to have you.
Oh,
and it's just really cool. So let's take a look at some of the films. You can chime in if you want. I know you're a little younger than us old timers, but I'm sure you have something to say about his first real Western in High Noon.
Wordless appearance, and it marked probably the first of probably 20 times in Hollywood in the 50s that he played one of 4 bad men. I don't know why they always rounded it off to 4 bad men, but that was the configuration that usually was there. It would be 4 bad guys, and Lee would quite often be one of them in Hollywood.
Was there more? I mean, you're right. Without saying anything, he just lent such a I guess sinister background. Whether he's the hired hand or the henchman or the gunslinger, you're right. He doesn't say anything, even a little bit. When they weren't just grunts either. When later in films he was able to speak, he said, whether it was a couple lines or not. Okay, that's the cool guy with the self-proclaimed, what is it, vulture nose, Mike, or
Yeah.
bald eagle
Yep.
nose.
Snake eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, gun-side eyes, beady eyes, hawk nose, equine nose. Yeah, I remember a National Enquirer article about Lee Van Cleef getting married, I think for the third time, and it was like, "Can you believe a woman is marrying a guy this ugly?"
Tom, you could be the first of the three of us who have seen Untamed Frontier. I have not seen it.
If I saw Untamed Frontier, it was on TV.
Yeah, I saw it on cable.
Like wow. I told Mike, my first appearance of noticing Lee Van Cleef was in Beast from 20,000 Fathoms when I was a little kid. My grandmother took us to the theater, and I watched that. And typical, giant reptile monster movie. But at the very end, when they go to kill him at an amusement park, they bring in this guy with this isotope that they're going to shoot into the monster and kill him. And the guy that turns to Lee Van Cleef and says, "Do you know how to use that thing?" He says, "I can pick my teeth with this thing." And even as a little kid, I'm going, "Oh my God, this guy is really cool." And that was my introduction to Lee. And then you'd see him on TV in all the TV westerns.
Well, mine was The Master. No, I'm just kidding. That would be
the Cheetos commercials.
That could be your era, though, Mike. Right? The Master could have been the first thing that you saw.
Yeah, I did in fact watch The Master, even though it was head to head with A-Team. I think it was a Friday night show, and A-Team may have been a rerun that week, so maybe I flipped it over to The Master.
Tom, you ever see Lawless Breed?
Yeah, I've seen Lawless Breed. Yeah.
What's your opinion, real quick?
He doesn't. He's just a character actor. Takes a part in it, so he's nothing big in these.
Right, exactly. So during this time, he wasn't a big star. Whether it's Jack Slade or Tumbleweed.
Yeah, he's just in the background. You noticed him, but
doing his thing, working
doing his thing. Always get killed.
What an actor did. Was he a member of the Actors Studio, Mike?
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh no, not the Actors Studio. He got into movies through he did some New Jersey community theater, and then he got discovered by Joshua Logan, and he did Mr. Roberts. He did it with Henry Fonda, and he did it with whoever the other lead actor was. Did not make it into the movie version of Mr. Roberts, though.
Right.
More bit roles came. Jack Slade. When I show these photos, this is my researchers and Gertrude, who's 83. She's worked for my family for years. I fired her a couple times for bad lighting and bad mic, but she went to the archives and found these stills.
I just noticed that, and I wrote Eric Zaldivar, and I, my frequent co-writer on projects, I wrote a bit about two gunslingers named Wade McSlade and Slade McWade, because Van Cleef in the 50s, he played so many characters that were either named Slade or Wade or McSlade or I know he wasn't Jack Slade, but for some reason 50s writers in the Western genre, they loved that phoneme of aid.
Kind of like Alex Cord, right? As Alex Cord.
Right. So, Alex Cord as Cord.
I love that.
That's
one of the greatest casting names in history. Anyway, Tom, Tumbleweed.
Yeah, this is one I got from Australia on a DVD, and he's probably got a pretty good role in this as a posse, but typical, he's gun happy, so Audie has to keep him in line, but he's got a decent role in this one.
Yeah, I remember with the two Audie Murphy films, I saw Posse to Hell first, which was, I think, 61. So it was kind of one of his later Hollywood movies. And it was like, that's kind of weak. I didn't really like Posse to Hell. But then I saw Tumbleweed, and it was like, okay, Tumbleweed is a bad Audie Murphy movie. Posse to Hell is going to clearly be a Midland one. I just didn't know how bad Audie Murphy movies could get until I saw Tumbleweed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, was this Rails to Laramie? Was this just segments from a Laramie episode? Or was this a feature made based on that? Or I never could figure that one out.
I think they're unrelated. Laramie was just a
Yeah.
historical.
Okay, I get when I was, when I researched, this is one of the films I like. I like a sinister young LVC. Really cool. I mean, if things yet to come, he knows his career's taken off somewhere.
Well, he did have some black clad 50s roles, kind of like in Lonely Man, that were kind of, foreshadowing Colonel Mortimer. They were not only spiffily dressed, but he was also kind of dignified in certain roles. And other ones, he was the kind of grubby, pathetic villain where he was sweaty.
He hadn't showered in weeks, right?
Yeah.
Had a terrible hat. Yeah, grubby clothes.
He was cowardly and.
Yeah, I haven't seen Yellow Tomahawk, Tom.
Yeah. Yeah.
How is it?
This is one of the first ones where he plays an Indian. And I mean, because of the nose, and the eyes, he could pull it off.
So who's better at playing Indian, him, Chuck Connors, or Bill Shatner, Tom?
Oh God, no. Lee Van Cleef, of course.
Okay, all right. What do you think Lee thought of this role? Just another paycheck? What do you think, Mike?
God, it brings up I one time talked to Tony LoBianco, who was Lee Van Cleef's co-star in Mean Frank and Crazy Tony. And I wish I would have recorded that conversation because Tony had this story about Lee and his reaction to having to shave a chest for something. And I can't remember if Lee was like really opposed to it or he just thought that it was just part of the job. But clearly with those Indian roles, he had to shave his chest.
And he made a few films with Scott Brady, didn't he, Mike?
Yeah, the Scott Brady, that was like a kind of a C-list, what we would call C-list actor now. Those were
he was Larry Tierney's brother.
Those are B westerns. B minus is what I'm trying to imply.
There you go.
These roles, I just started to watch a few of them because I only watched the spaghetti western ones. I'm sorry, Tom. I know, you include Roy Rogers, right, Tom?
He was on all of them. Roy Rogers, Gene Autry, Cisco Kid, Lone Ranger. In fact, I was going to ask Mike, and I told you last week, Lee Van Cleef was actually the original Django, spelled Jango in one
That's
of the
awesome.
In one of the Lone Ranger episodes. He's called Django. Of course, he's an outlaw, but so in my book, he's the first Django.
He did so many 50s TV that I'm sure he had one of every character name possible under the sun.
10 Wanted Men. I think he had a line, didn't he, or something?
Oh, he was good in this one. Yeah, this is the one where they're going to hang one of the brothers, and the other ones show up, and Leo Gordon rides into town side saddle. Only Leo Gordon could get away with that, but Lee Van Cleef plays brother brothers too, and he's pretty tough in it.
Right.
But you're right, Jay. I think he has like one, maybe two lines in 10 Wanted Men. So it's very good to see, like, by the end of the decade, when Lee Van Cleef is starring in a Randolph Scott movie, Ride Lonesome, it's great to see him as the main villain. So it was really great to see that evolution over the 50s.
Well, this looks like a Bonanza episode, which he did, in fact, but this isn't from it. That's the great Glenn Strange, character actor. He played Frankenstein's monster when Karloff didn't do it, and he stood in for Cheney. So there's a crossover star right there. Glenn Strange, folks. He's also in Bartender on Gunsmoke, Tom.
Gunsmoke, yep. Sam.
Oh, Sam, that's of course. So these roles kept coming and stuff. So in your book, you cover all the films and all the TV shows, right, Mike?
Well, those that I could see. Keep in mind, this is Mike Malloy, college student, pre-internet Alabama. So, some of them, I was very, very lucky because, like, one of the most seminal roles in Lee Van Cleef's career was Big Gun Down from 1966, his first standalone, non-shared lead as a spaghetti western. I had no way in 1995 of seeing Big Gun Down unless it just happened to play on TV that year, and thankfully it played. Do you remember when TBS or TNT used to do a Lee Van Cleef birthday tribute?
Oh yeah.
So. Yeah, fortunately, the year I was writing the book, they played Big Gun Down at 2 a.m. in the middle of the night in tribute to his birthday. And so, of course, I stayed up and not only watched it, but taped it. But that kind of stuff happened a lot. I drove a couple states over to go see Red Sundown at 3 a.m. in the morning. I had to find somebody that had just the right cable package that had this obscure channel, and I didn't have it in my town. Nobody knew in my parents' town had it, but my granny in her apartment complex had this just
Granny,
the right.
it's 2 a.m. It's
So
your little boy.
I had to crash on her sofa and watch it at 3 a.m. because she had a console TV and no way of hooking up a VCR to that. So I just had to watch it. And Red Sundown was such a cheat because it was Lee Van Cleef, his role in another Rory Calhoun movie, Dawn at Socorro, and they just used that as flashbacks in this movie, yep. Red Sundown.
Yeah, you keep waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting to see it, and he doesn't pop up as a main character. And then all of a sudden, there's this flashback scene, and there he is. Yeah. Like, oh no!
I waited up till 4:15 a.m. for this.
See that? Yeah.
Thanks, Granny. Or otherwise, Mike wouldn't have been able to continue with his research. So, yeah. Mike, you are younger. I'm actually Tom. Is a little older generation. I'm next, then you, of course. But I used to watch all this stuff in local LA television. A lot of spaghetti westerns and Lee Van Cleef movies, or sometimes on CBS or NBC for the late movie Tonight, Kid Vengeance.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
You turn the channel and you watch the rest of Johnny or something like that.
But then again, if you didn't know what that title was, you would even watch it, and then you find out the next day, your buddy would say, "Did you watch Kid Vengeance last night?" No. Why? Oh, Lee Van Cleef's movie. What?
Okay, so I discovered Lee Van Cleef. The next phase of my Lee Van Cleef fandom after seeing Day of Anger, I went back to that Walmart, and here is a giant wall of budget VHS on the shelf, just like floor to ceiling budget VHS, and only the spines are out. Now, keep in mind, there's no IMDb. I don't know what Lee Van Cleef's starring roles are. I don't know the titles of these movies. Right. My only option is to go through every VHS on this wall. And a lot of times, Lee Van Cleef wouldn't even be featured in the artwork. Lee Van Cleef's name, because these were just budget VHS, and they would just slap some painting of a cowboy on the cover. And so... yeah, it was a tribute to my devotion, I suppose, that I even endured. And then the picture quality once you got them home, unbelievable.
Yeah, or they would cut it. They would cut them because it took them off of TV. Mike, and his scene would be cut down in half. Yeah,
Mike. Yeah, don't knock the 4th generation bootleg. I love that.
Well, so my Day of Anger, even though I was impressed overall with Lee in Day of Anger, my Day of Anger was cut so badly that he would leave one scene, the music would be swelling, and then jump cut, a very hard, abrupt jump cut to the music dying out.
The blue line of death.
And then
I was going to say.
And then I remember there was one scene, and I will get to this much more classic John Sturges gunfight at the OK Corral, but there was one scene in my copy of Day of Anger where there was a close-up of a character that we had never even been introduced to. And I was like, what kind of cutting is this? Yeah.
Oh, good.
Anyway, great story. But, of course, we have to talk about one of the pinnacles of his career, Gunfight at the OK Corral. Did Lee enjoy making this film, Mike?
Oh, I mean, you got me. I know he died because he was spotted in a mirror, and I think took a knife to the chest, if I remember correctly. He was... he was basically out of the movie in the first 5 minutes.
Right, but it's still a classic.
He played the Frank Stallone character in Tombstone, the cheating gambler. Yeah, he gets a knife.
Not quite Billy Bob Thornton, not yet.
No.
But it's a great one of my favorite non-spaghetti westerns. Let's go get him. So, hope that was an okay, Kurt. Let's move right along. We're going through his film career, Tom. Let's see what we got. And then we went back to still made a slew. I'll try to go as fast as I can through them, like The Lonely Man and The Last Stagecoach, Tom.
Yeah, Lonely Man's one with Jack Palance. I was trying to think of the title last week or a couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
Lonely Man that's the one I mentioned where he's kind of got attention to his dress, and it's kind of a foreshadowing of Colonel Mortimer.
Yeah, he's actually got a mustache. Or most of the time, if he has a mustache, it's just a 3-day growth. He hasn't had a chance to shave. So now he's starting to look like the Colonel Mortimer character.
That's The Last Stagecoach West.
Was that Stagecoach West? It looked like Jim Davis.
I have not seen this, Tom. How is it?
I haven't. Stagecoach West, is it a film or is it the TV series?
No, it's a movie, Tom.
I haven't seen it.
Stagecoach West.
I haven't seen it. That's one of those
that's a stumper, Mike.
obscure
Did you
ones.
see it at 2 a.m. out in the ATL somewhere on TBS, maybe?
There was some that I didn't get to see during the writing of the book, and then when I watched them, I was like, when I finally watched them, I was like, no, great loss. Some of those,
But that's the attitude you have to take, yeah. But it had a little something to do with Claude Akins. Didn't they like go at it? And
This is the one with the range rider,
Joe Dakota, yeah.
Joe Mahoney, yeah, Jock Mahoney. This one's a good movie.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that this isn't shown more. And actually, Lee Van Cleef and Claude Akins are brothers.
And they're almost kind of comic relief. They're brawny, but they're comic relief kind of.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that movie, it's a loose remake of Bad Day at Black Rock, and I love it like a million times more than Bad Day at Black Rock. It is atmospheric. It is Jock Mahoney has never been better. I campaign. This is because I'm in touch with a lot of Blu-ray and DVD distributors. I'm campaigning for this one all the time to get a proper release.
That's sure.
I don't blame you. Yeah, it's very good. Very good. I was amazed when I saw that one.
Then he went on to make a slew of, back to the, I guess the double billers. I guess the Tin Star was one of them. Not bad little role there in the mountains.
Yeah, that's what the.
Yeah, that one
with Henry Fonda. There was a spinoff on the Deputy, TV series.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, that's where the Deputy came from this film.
Oh, it originated. Okay.
Yeah, so the film came first, and then the Deputy came on TV.
So this film and Day of the Badmen are both ones that kind of re-examined. It's very fitting that Lee Van Cleef was in High Noon because that movie is credited with launching the adult Western. The boom of adult westerns in the 1950s, and by adult western,
I think it did.
By adult western, yes, everybody is perfectly clothed. What I mean to say is that they had some more complex psychological elements. It was not shoot 'em ups. But then Lee Van Cleef was also in Day of the Badman and Tin Star, which were also adult westerns, and they also kind of just re-examined the same theme of a lawman being left on his own. So.
Tom wouldn't help him at all. Just stood back and watched. Yep.
Right. But they're not total retreads. They're Day of the Badman and Tin Star. I recommend both of those highly.
What about Gun Battle at Monterey, Mike?
Yep.
Gun Battle at Monterey. Yet another one that I just have no real impression.
Oh, you're missing out, Mike.
He's got a decent role in this as the the hired gun, but it's a small role.
They all are. The funny thing is about a Lee Van Cleef movie, you know what film he's in command in or starring in. But right, when you mention some of these B films, one after the other, it's like he's like anybody else who made B films surviving. He really wasn't a name.
Well, with the exception of something like It Conquered the World, where he's not the lead, but he's not the top billed, but he is the lead.
Right.
And then occasionally also, do you remember there would be like the Ford Theater and there would be all these anthology TV shows that had no recurring characters. And occasionally in the 50s, Lee Van Cleef would be the lead of one of those.
Stories of the Century. He was in a couple of Jesse James or whatever. Yeah.
But I even liked it better. I liked it better when he got a little bit of range and he was in, like Ford Theater and it had nothing to do with Westerns or, it would be like a crime plot or, something like that. It's just a one-off story for an anthology show.
Mm-hmm. All right. Anyway. Did you see that one either, Mike, or just you skip through that one?
Skip O'Meara. That was Lee and Skip. What was that film?
What was it, Tom? It was Gun Battle. No, yeah, it was Gun Battle at... or Day of the...
Well, Skip was in 10 Wanted Men, so was that it?
Yeah.
No, Day of the Badman or something? Yeah, Day of the Badman.
Day of the Badman?
Day of the Badman, yeah, which I recommend Day of the Bad. Fred McMurray, I recommend that very much. There's the bravados.
Yep.
So
got a nice scene in there, but he's just one of the four.
One of the four, once again.
Right. I was going to ask you, maybe you already explained it and I missed it, what kind of Lee Van Cleef films could you see like off cable? I'm sure they played a slew of them, on television and stuff when you saw as a kid, as opposed to what you gathered for your research. Were you pretty much familiar growing up, or just getting the research opened your mind up to like?
Well, again, seeing for a few dollars more as a teenager really solidified him in my mind. I had heard the name before because my pop was a Western fan, and I remember my pop. He and I must have watched Liberty Valance when I was a kid because my dad was like, "Oh my goodness, Lee Marvin is a villain, but his sidekick is Lee Van Cleef." That's the earliest memory I have of his name.
Right.
But my dad loved the bravados, and with good reason. And that's when I think I first heard Henry Silva's name. And so later, when I did a documentary entitled Eurocrime, I was able to, anytime I would meet these guys for like Eurocrime interviews or anything like that, I would always piggyback a Lee Van Cleef question into my Eurocrime interview.
Lee, they all had a story.
So, yeah, I have on YouTube, if you go and look, just like, look up like Mike Malloy, Tough Guy Film Expert or something like that, because I'm really eclipsed on YouTube by another Mike Malloy, who's a radio host. But if you look up like Tough Guy Film Expert Mike Malloy, you'll find my YouTube channel, and I got stuff like Henry Silva talking about Lee Van Cleef, Fred Williamson talking about Lee Van Cleef, stuff like that.
Right. No, I know. I've met Henry Silva, Johnny Cool, great. The Hills Run Red. I have that signed.
Which brings up an interesting question. I'll be interested what the two of you think. So Henry Silva told me that he did not, because he grew up doing mostly gangster roles, some Western roles, but mostly gangster roles. So when he went over to Italy, he was mainly interested in doing gangster movies and not spaghetti westerns. Hills Run Red was his only spaghetti western. So Lee Van Cleef, of course, went over and not only did spaghetti westerns, but when the spaghetti western, when the phase was when the fad was shifting to crime films, Lee Van Cleef very stubbornly stuck with westerns. Why do you think he was so resistant to switch over to the crime films?
Good question. Anyway,
the only thing I can think of was he was the king of the spaghetti westerns, at least for American audiences, probably English speaking audiences. So maybe he felt, I'm a big shot in a small pool. I'd rather be that than a small person in a big pool. That in a genre where I'm not known, I've got to start all over and make myself.
Right.
I don't know what goes through their mind,
Right. Anyway, here we are at one of the
Wait, one more.
Yeah.
What do you think about his age at that time?
Regarding what?
Switching over. Would he be competing with a younger group of Italian actors?
But I mean, he had such star power over in Italy. I feel like he could have written his own ticket, basically.
Probably.
I thought so. Yep.
So let's move to a major film, Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Tom, I know this is a big favorite of yours.
It is great. He hasn't got. I don't think he has 2 lines of dialogue in this one. Basically, it's his look.
Right. I mean, as a film in general, it's one.
I like it very much. Yep. Lee Marvin, of course, steals it from John Wayne, but
So it's an interesting parallel because there's that. I think the same year there's a Twilight Zone episode where Lee Van Cleef, Lee Marvin, and Struggle Martin, the 3 bad guys of Liberty Valance, are also in this Twilight Zone episode. So did they have the same management? How did that work out? That the 3 did both of them in the same year?
If you haven't seen that, you haven't seen an episode called The Grave.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's on YouTube. I mean, look it up. It's a fantastic, and it's only half hour?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
anyway, I was going to jump. This Tom knows that I call this LVC's Kioma. How the West was won.
The West was won. There's a great shot. I could not find it for you where he's standing on the dock with Walter Brennan. I think that the shot that I've seen, Walter's not there, but he looks great. He looks almost like he did in the Big Gun down in that fur coat at the very beginning of the film. But they put the wig on. Maybe it's the first time you wore a wig, Mike.
Well, it's
won't be the last.
It's ultra. It was shot in Cinerama, so it was ultra widescreen. And then to see it on VHS, you're seeing, you're seeing probably like 1/16 of the actual screen when you watch How the West Was Won.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, then I guess one of the films that started Lee off to legendary status. Mike.
I'm not familiar with this one.
It's just a little film called 4 Pennies for Your Thoughts. For a few dollars more, it's the French lobby card oversized. I love that shot actually.
This one blew me away because the advertising was the what was it? The man in black is waiting. You know, the man with no name is back.
Right.
The man in black is waiting. And the first thing I thought was, oh my God, here comes Lee Van Cleef, which is fantastic. He's going to be the villain, you know. And then when it turns out that he's the good guy and they team up, I was in like seventh heaven because there's Lee Van Cleef finally being recognized as at least a good guy in our eyes.
Right.
And I mean, his costuming and stuff was just fantastic. I can't imagine anybody else playing that role.
Yeah. Well, if it's funny because How the West Was Won was his previous feature film role prior to For a Few Dollars More. But if you look, because he kept doing all through in the U.S. he kept doing television. But if you see his mid-'60s TV appearances around the same time, Lee looks tired. He looks bored. He looks like he's like an inch away from retiring, and he's so done with all this, and he can't get film roles anymore, and he looks old and haggard. And then the same year that he would do like an uninspired Bonanza performance, you look at him in For a Few Dollars More, and oh my goodness, Lee Van Cleef is back. He looks 10 years younger. He's alive. He's invigorated. So I'm so pleased that it all worked out for him.
Maybe we should get into the traffic accident, Mike. You know, at the end of the 50s, they were wrapping up a film up in Lone Pine. And on the way home, he got into a head-on collision and really messed up his leg. And, I mean, everybody knows, even though the traffic report may have been cleaned up, but he was intoxicated when he got into the accident. He was laid up for at least 6 months or more. And they told him he'd never ride a horse again. And I mean, it was a year or more before he was able to walk around. And you'll see him in some of those TV episodes. There's one that I saw on Lawman, I think it is, or Cheyenne, where he's with James Coburn, and they play deputies. They're both bad. And you can see him limping because he doesn't, anytime he has to go and walk down the boardwalk or run around the corner, he's still got a definite limp. And that was like 64. So like Mike says, he was basically washed up, looked like he was 65 years old, and was going to start playing the town drunks, you know.
Right. So anyway, let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Pinnacle, probably considered one of the greatest spaghetti westerns of all time. I actually like him better in this one than the other one. Here, I like the bad guy. Gets shot in the face at the end. That's how you want to go out, right, Mike?
No, I don't know how Tom Betts feels, but no, I take him in For a Few Dollars More any day.
Yeah,
in fact, I'm so glad that even though his next role was the bigger movie for Good, Bad, and the Ugly, and it was a villain role, that he immediately his transformation withstood that, and he immediately went back to playing heroes and anti-heroes. I was so pleased.
Yep, I mean, he's great. And I mean, again, I can't say anybody else playing that role, but I'm like Mike. Once he became the hero, I wanted to stay there, and then he jumps back to being the bad villain in the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Opposite. I want him bad.
And I was so glad to see him in the Big Gun Down. Yep.
I was hoping he'd blast away John Philip Law at the end of Death Rides a Horse. Give me a break. I always root for the bad guy.
This is where he starts playing father figures. You can see John Philip Law as Clint Eastwood clone here. And a lot of the films after this, he started playing the father figure.
Yeah, John Philip Law, Clint Eastwood clone on down to the lambskin jacket and a lambskin vest rather, and the bandana tied around his neck.
Yeah, but you know what? John
had a toothpick instead of a cheroot
in this movie.
He's great.
Sure.
Yep.
You know, it was shocking. I like to see a guy out of his element like Tab Hunter when he did Shotgun, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
They come over and make that one spaghetti western, and they rock. You know, Dean Reed, you know, Johnny Halliday, Bobby from the Brady Bunch. I love when they do one in Skidoo because it leaves it's like a mysterious. They made one spaghetti western, so you know.
Yeah, Alex Cord playing Cord in Cord.
Yeah,
and Cord meets McCord meets Alex, right? Meets Ken McCord from Adam 12. So basically, this is the bread and butter of his career already. He's gotten the smaller roles, playing the killer who says a few lines, and now he's starring or co-starring in a slew of spaghetti westerns, Mike.
Okay, so Death Rides a Horse, Beyond the Law, and Big Gun Down. I love those three performances because a lot of people like to say that Van Cleef was an anti-hero in his spaghetti westerns. In those three films, if you notice, by the end of the movie, he becomes hero, not anti-hero, but just purely the hero. And Beyond the Law, he's just a giant, weird criminal goofball, and he becomes serious and a man of action by the end of the movie.
Yep.
And Death Rides a Horse, he's all obsessed with vengeance. But by the end of the movie, he lets John Philip Law take the reins and lets it become about his cause. And he becomes very selfless by the end of the movie. In Big Gun Down, he's overzealous about law and order, and he's very naive. But by the end of the movie, he's still the same man of action, but he's a realist. And so I think all three of those movies provide him with an excellent transition and just turn him into a pure hero by the end of the movie.
Yeah. This is one that took me forever to see because I kept hearing about it, but you couldn't, it wasn't on DVD, it wasn't on VHS. And then finally I saw it, sort of a letdown because like you said, he plays sort of a goofy character. He's not the Colonel Mortimer guy, but he redeems himself at the end, turns out to be a decent character.
Right. Yeah. There was a slew of those. Would you include the Grand Duel in that, or is that he's even more aged, Mike?
Well, the Grand Duel is great because he's a character that is transformed into hero, but the transformation occurs before the movie even starts. So he is purely heroic throughout the whole movie. And I've helped out on some Blu-ray and DVD releases of Lee Van Cleef movies, and I was very, very proud to appear on the Blu-ray of the recent Arrow Blu-ray of the Grand Duel. That was a real career highlight for me.
The only problem I have with Grand Duel is if you're like Mike and me, we recognize in the shadow that's Lee Van Cleef by the train in the steam. I mean, oh, God, it's Lee Van Cleef. Now I got to watch the whole movie to see what's going to happen. But I know who the assassin was.
The mystery is spoiled. Yes, Tom.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, one of my top three favorite spaghetti westerns of Lee Van Cleef's is Sabata, because you got Banjo, Mario Brega. Right? I mean, it's just
William Berger. Yep.
It's a fun movie.
Pedro Sanchez
with gadgets and it's like
I thought by this time
Wild West.
I thought by this time that he knew he was an icon in the spaghetti westerns.
Yeah.
And he's got this smirk on his face the whole movie, like he's having fun.
A total perma smirk. It's just frozen on his face, but it works.
Yeah. Yeah. He's always having fun making this movie because he's like James Bond.
Well, by this point, I'm sure he's a big box office draw, making films that are crossing over.
Well, he made I don't know a lot about his salaries. I do know he made $400,000 USD for Sabata, and then it shows how much the spaghetti western had slipped because he made $150,000 each for Captain Apache and Bad Man's River. So between 69 and 72, the western had really taken a bit of a dive.
Yep.
Right. Barquero, is that a questionable spaghetti western, Tom? It is, isn't it?
Well, yeah, if you want, the Americans want to call it spaghetti westerns, but I don't, unless it's made.
Okay, but no, you have no problem with Zorro or White Fang, but Barquero you have a problem with.
Yeah, I got a parent. The only thing about this one is when you watch it at the very end, you go, why didn't you pick up his rifle and plug Warren Oates like an hour and a half ago?
Mm-hmm.
It's a very notable movie, though, because Clint Eastwood and Charles Bronson had both transferred their, not Bronson by that time, but Eastwood had already transferred his Italian stardom back to American stardom, and this was Van Cleef's attempt at doing so, and just didn't take.
No, and then he started doing some American movies, teaming up, with Jim Brown.
Jim Brown. Yeah.
But this one is Barquero was at least shot in the U.S. It was shot in Colorado, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. El Condor was American financed, but shot in Spain. So not only did it look like a spaghetti western, it was shot in Spain. So it was even, it's like 3/4 spaghetti.
Right. This is supposed to be Lee's favorite character role because he even named a car that he owned Giroux, who's the name of the character he plays in El Condor. So.
And it harkened back to the grubby. I told you about the grubby type characters, the cowardly type characters he played in the 50s westerns. That was one of his 3 variants, I think, of his villains in the 50s. And this was basically his attempt to bring that to the big screen in his star period.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this the song, Mike.
They call him Captain Apache.
They stalked me. They blah blah blah. Oh yeah, crap.
Just like Murder on the Orient Express.
Was this the debut of his toupee?
I think so. Don't forget he sings April Morning in the end too. So there's you double take on it. But yeah, I think this was the first one he wore a toupee in.
Right.
He actually had scenes in here where he didn't wear a hat. Yeah, he's in bed with Carol Baker and stuff like that. So yeah, he wore the toupee. Plus he had to, because he takes off his shirt and stuff, and he's bare chested in a couple scenes where he actually goes back to being Apache. Yeah. So shaved his chest again, Mike.
Yeah, I remember. You know, like I said, I saw this after Day of Anger. Thank goodness that it worked out in that order. But when I saw it, and here's Lee Van Cleef, not only wearing the
Mike Freeze.
He's good. He'll be back in a second.
There we go. Okay.
And I'm back.
Okay, cool. Well, then he did the sequel, Return of Sabata. I actually find it just as fun. It's a good double bill, Mike. What do you think?
Sabata movies basically work in scenes. Some scenes work, some scenes don't. Both of them are kind of chaotic and kind of a mess, and there's no real plot to follow. So you either like the scenes or you don't.
Well, you're right. Exactly. But it's not like me walking out when I saw E.T. the first 5 minutes, Tom. I told you that story.
No.
Yeah, a date I had at the time. What was it, 81, 82? I wanted to go see First Blood with Stallone, and she wanted to go see E.T. So they played five movies next to E.T. So I said, "See ya," and I went and saw First Blood. Loved it. Anyway.
So what you're saying is you had a day to see E.T.
Right? Okay, so anyway, he continued, as I said, to make these movies, Bad Man's River, kind of like Barquero, but just retitled. He's bad, bad, bad.
Well, Bad Man's River, funny you should mention the music, because it does have a pretty rockin' song in the middle of it. And Eric Zaldivar and I, we tracked down the rock band that did, they just took one of their existing songs and put Bad Man's River type lyrics over one of their existing rock songs. They were called Jade Warrior.
Yeah.
You're a very bad man.
The problem with this one is, and a lot of the spaghettis were like this, it couldn't make up its mind whether it wanted to be a drama or a comedy. So they try and mix the two, and the mix doesn't work.
Well, what's interesting about this and Beyond the Law is, Lee really was a star, because here are other spaghetti Western stars, Bud Spencer in the case of Beyond the Law and Johnny Garco in the case of Bad Man's River.
Yeah, you forget Johnny Garco's even in it.
Yeah, they're like seventh in the credits under Lee Van Cleef.
Yeah.
Right. Grand Duel, of course, or Grandpa Duel. What do you think, Mike?
I think I'm insulted by that that slur against one of my favorite spaghetti westerns.
Right. No, I affectionately like this. I didn't like him when he started showing his age with the white hair, and he was getting older.
It is a cautionary tale for me, because Shaggy and Craggy don't mix. If you're Craggy, then don't be Shaggy. Keep your haircut nice and tight and short. But Grand Duel, the main thing holding it back, the main thing where I can actually understand why it has detractors, is it's so damn cheap. Like, Lee Van Cleef doesn't have a holster. Oh, look, he's pictured with a holster there, but he gets no holster in the movie. He just tucks his revolver in his pants, and it's a large frame revolver. I don't even think it's accurate for the period. And no, that the machine gun that the bad guys used to mow down a bunch of villagers, that machine gun's a World War II machine gun. That wasn't historically accurate. The Adam Saxon character, he doesn't have a holster. He just holds his pistol inside his gold chain, his watch chain. It makes no sense. Yeah.
Well, check it out. My copy of the film goes back and forth between English and Italian. Isn't it supposed to be one way or the other?
So you have the Wild East film that has some additional scenes, I think, right?
Well, he talks to that guy, that Baron, that he's invited to that party, and all of a sudden they start talking Italian to each other. I just thought that's weird.
Well, anyway, the score is fantastic. That's worth watching it.
Right.
I love the score.
Well, then, of course, he moved on to another semi-classic, Magnificent Seven Ride.
or Death Rides a Horse, if the picture is to be believed.
Yeah.
There's older gentlemen. As I said, I'm not a fan of the grandfatherly kind of. He's there as a veteran. I like we go back maybe what is it, 71, 72? I'm a big LVC fan, pre-70, everything prior to that.
Magnificent Seven ride. It looks like a TV movie.
Sure does.
I mean,
like Ponderosa.
It's it looks like I don't know. What can I say?
It's very evenly lit. It's not dramatically lit. It's very evenly lit. Everything is, it's Lee and a bunch. It's actually interesting because, there were a whole bunch of Magnificent Seven movies, and then there were a whole bunch of Dirty Dozen movies. The plot of Magnificent Seven Ride basically combines the Dirty Dozen and the Magnificent Seven. That's the main interest of it to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. After about 15 minutes. I'm a purist. If it's not a classic and catch my,
that's why the nickname for it is the Magnificent 15, because that's the point at which people shut it off.
I'd rather watch 15 Scaffolds for a Killer over and over again. So, The Stranger and the Gunfighter, Tom, we know here it's a favorite here at the podcast.
Well, here we go again. A couple of things. They're trying to combine the karate movies and the Western to keep it alive. The Fortune at the Rafter is a map tattooed to the butts of these 4 women. We've seen that. We've seen that angle a bunch of times. So it's a decent movie to watch, but it's nothing that you would say, "Boy, I'm going to watch that."
I thought Tony Anthony was in it. So anyway, then I saw that's not Tony Anthony. Anyway, moving on. Mike, so want to tell us you co-produced the soundtrack for one of a Lee Van Cleef movie. Which one was it?
Oh, well, a re-release of The Perfect Killer, which was a 1977 Eurocrime movie that Lee was in. And I've always liked that. But, even if fans don't like the movie, most fans agree that the soundtrack is one of the best from the Eurocrime genre. And so I was, fortunate to put it out. Bravo. There it is. Yeah, put it out with Cynadelic Records, still in print, from what I understand. On LP.
Nice. So,
when he wears the toupee, he trims his hair up a little bit, so it's not too shaggy.
Tom, why do you notice these things, Tom? I just see Lee holding a rifle behind. Maybe was it a bank or something?
He's an assassin.
Yeah, he's at the airport, and he's targeting some young lady on the runway.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. So anyway, you also do a lot of supplemental stuff, Mike. You do what is it? The narration afterwards, or you interview people that are in the genre, or stuff like that. You even made docs about it. I'm also a filmmaker, which I always brag about every 5 shows. So I know what it's like to get a doc and put people together, and
but
it's a lot of work.
In Mike's case, it worked out brilliantly because he had problems getting the rights to some of the clips and stuff, so he kept tweaking the documentary and working on it this whole time instead of just putting it to bed and then bringing it back out. He kept working and working on it. Every time he'd send it to me to say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" It just blew me away. So when I finally saw the whole thing together, it was like, this is the best documentary I've ever seen in my life, because he's got so much into it. He spent 5 years putting it together.
It's the best on Eurocrime.
Eurocrime,
it's right.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm into most of the spaghetti westerns and Eurocrime primarily, but I just think it's so interesting that the spaghetti western penetrated America, and everybody knows what a spaghetti western is, but then you ask them, what was the Italian action fad after the spaghetti western? They have no idea, at least my fellow Yanks, because it just didn't penetrate America. And so a lot of people said I should come up with a more interesting name than Eurocrime. That's a little on the nose, Mike. But I said, it's a branding issue. Americans don't know the genre. So hell yeah, I'm just going to call the documentary what the genre is called, and let's try to crystallize this genre in the minds of some Americans.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's take a look. Let's take a look at that. We have the whole documentary here that we're going to play for everybody. No, actually, let's take a look at the poster.
There we go. Look at the lineup on there.
Franco Nero. John Saxon,
John
Henry Silva,
Saxon.
Antonio Sabato, Fred
Yep.
Williamson, Luke Miranda, Joe D'Alessandro, Chris Meacham.
Right, a whole cast of others. Well, why couldn't you get Sophia Loren, Mike? What was her excuse?
Well, here's the dirty secret about docu making in general is that it's just tough to get women on camera sometimes, and then you get you go on the festival circuit and you catch hell for not being diverse and inclusive enough.
Yep.
But especially with these women, being in the decade septuagenarian or whatever they were, it's just they're so reticent to be on camera.
That's the same problem we have, Mike. We can't get any women to come on here either.
Where are my women?
Even Gertrude, she stays in the background, and we never see her. So,
yeah, you don't want to see her, Tom. She's got a wooden leg. And she drinks too much. But let's talk about God's Gun, which is a favorite of mine.
We?
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Actually, as far as bad spaghetti westerns go, I enjoy it just because it's you have a sixer, and you just have some popcorn and enjoy. Maybe once every 10 years, just to remind you.
What was the movie that Lee was making? Was a crime movie that he basically, when he plays the twin brother, he looks the same as he did in the crime movie. He's got the earrings in the ear, and you know what I'm talking about, Mike?
He plays twin brothers in God's Gun, and then he plays twin brothers in a 1954 movie called The Desperado something like that.
When little Johnny goes to find Father John's brother, ends up at his plantation or whatever, they show Lee Van Cleef, and he looks like he came out of one of the crime movies.
I see. Okay,
he's got earrings in his ear, and I'm going, oh my God, they took this clip right from one of his crime movies.
No, he was not. I don't think he was doing two back-to-back productions. Maybe he was, but I remember Lee giving an interview around the late 70s where he said, the hoop earring was he liked it because it associated with his naval days. Seafaring people, pirates, whatnot, would have a hoop earring. So he liked it in that way, and he wore it in one movie, and producers started asking for it. So he just started wearing the hoop earring more and more.
I'm not a fan.
That's something I never knew that. Okay.
Unless he's making a remake of Pirates of Penzance. Anyway, we're at that point of the show where we discuss Lee's probably the nadir of his career. Kid Vengeance, would you say, Mike?
I'm still burned up about that $65 I paid for it. Yeah.
Well, what do you have to say? What grade is it? Is it just beyond?
Well, technically a spaghetti western because it had some Italian money in it, but it was shot back to back with God's Gun. They were both shot in Israel, and Lee's wife traveled with him to Israel, although he really didn't want her to because, as he put it, all holy hell was breaking loose at that time. Unease in the Middle East, whatnot. So you really tell that the spaghetti western was just barely hanging in there because they have to come up with all these new co-productions like Israel. It was the Golan and Globus boys who put money into God's Gun. So why, Lee, when you see the handwriting on the wall that nobody's interested in westerns anymore, why are you insisting on staying with westerns instead of switching over to these crime films?
Mm-hmm.
That's something that's going to haunt you for the rest of your life.
Primarily just bitterness over that $65, but
yeah, really.
Oh, I don't mind, but yeah, I guess I would in that case. So that's basically Lee's western and spaghetti western films, feature films that he made and bit parts and stuff like that. We're also going to discuss his TV career because we're giving the full-on Lee Van Cleef tribute today. Now, that's not really true because then we'd be doing his Euro crime and his film noir. I thought about that, but 3-hour, 4-hour show,
Well, one thing, because it seems like we're maybe not going to get to 1981's Escape from New York, which had Lee Van Cleef. That's
we'll
when
get
he.
To it.
Well, we can only get. I mean, I'm perfectly willing just to interject, commandeer the show, and interject a Mike Malloy anecdote at this juncture.
Okay, please do.
But 1981, Lee Van Cleef, he's like third build, I think maybe second build in John Carpenter's Escape from New York, and of course Lee dies in 1989. I get the book deal in 1995 to write Lee's biography. And so I reach out to John Carpenter. I start, on my manual typewriter. I just dash off a letter, college kid in Alabama, right to his manager, publicist, agent, whatever. There's no way that John Carpenter's ever going to get back to me. But I think, request an interview. And I definitely remember at the end of my letter, I say, hey, Mr. Carpenter, I hear that you've got this Escape from L.A. coming out next year. And Lee was such an important part of Escape from New York. Lee is no longer with us. He's not going to, have a chance to be in the sequel. But maybe could you dedicate the movie to Lee? And so don't get a response. And then I come back. The next year, Escape from L.A. comes out. So my girlfriend and I, we buy our tickets, we buy our tubs of popcorn, we go in the theater, the house lights lower. I'm wondering, did John Carpenter dedicate the movie to Lee Van Cleef? I've got to find out. And the movie does not begin with a dedication to Lee Van Cleef. But then the movie unspools, and we see the Lee Van Cleef type character being played in this movie by Stacy Keach. And do you guys know what Stacy Keach's character's name is in the movie?
I forgot.
It's Malloy.
Malloy, that's right.
It's my name.
That's right, Malloy. Okay.
So, what am I to make of that? I request the prior year, I request that John Carpenter, dedicate the movie to Lee Van Cleef, and then the Lee Van Cleef type character, the Lee Van Cleef stand-in in Escape from L.A., is named Malloy. So I'm sure, my naive 19-year-old self thought that there was a connection, but in reality, I'm sure.
No, it was. I talked to John Carpenter and asked him. He said, Mike Malloy, that William Smith wannabe?
Mike Malloy is no kind of wannabe.
No. William Smith. I was paying homage. I was comparing you to him. That's a compliment.
Just because we can both grow chin whiskers?
I was trying to get Bill Smith on this show.
Well,
what happened, Tom? You never go.
Who knows?
I'm just messing with you, Mike. Just like we try to get Tony Anthony on the show. And, we can meet at my dojo. So let's move on to the TV aspect of it.
Well, wait. Look, before we get there,
now, Tom?
What do you think are the rarest Lee Van Cleef films?
To
see, to find, to buy?
So one thing that was very interesting, after I had written the book, then I bump into Tom again on something called the Lee Van Cleef web board, which is this kind of homegrown community run by this guy named Aaron, at least run in the later years by this guy, Aaron, very cool guy. But it, had all kinds of personality conflict and drama on it. It was really crazy. And the one movie that I know that neither Tom nor I have seen from Lee Van Cleef's 50s days was a hockey movie called White Lightning. And some guy gets into some kind of drama and conflict with other people on the board. Then, this is what I suspect at least, the guy creates this phony eBay auction for a 35 millimeter print or 16 millimeter print of White Lightning. Then he swoops in and buys it himself, tells everybody that he has bought it, even though I think he just created a bogus eBay auction. And then he lords it over everybody that he's not going to let anybody else see it.
So he listed it, bought it from himself, paid himself.
Well, he'd never had it to begin with. I think he.
What happened when whoever said it was listed on eBay, they started bidding for it. Well, this guy comes along and we decide, okay, we're going to let you buy it, but you make copies for everybody and sell it to us. So we don't care. And he agreed to do that. And then once the thing that he bought it disappeared. Never heard from the guy again. And he declined to do anything as making copies for anybody. So yeah, that's the rarest. And the other one that has become available was Machete.
Yeah, Machete actually, through an error, turned up on Netflix's earliest years of streaming. And I think they thought it was the other Machete or some other Machete. And then here you could watch Lee Van Cleef cutting down sugarcane in Cuba or wherever he was.
Yeah, right. I've got that one on DVD or a copy of it or whatever. But yeah, that one was another one that we didn't even know if it existed or not because of the name. Yep.
Yeah, it was just crazy for it to go from the most obscure Lee Van Cleef movie ever to turning up on this mainstream streaming platform. It was just insane.
Yep.
Oh, that's cool. Okay,
Yep.
so let's jump into the. I don't have them all here, but we'll take a nice glance at Lee's TV Western career. That he was in so many, from the Lone Ranger to Annie Oakley to Bonanza to Laramie, you name it, he was on it.
Yep.
And he actually did speak. He wasn't here. We got to have some lines, right, Mike? It wasn't just grunting and smiling.
I mean, like, if I can't remember some of the 50s TV movies, how am I going to remember various different 50s TV appearances, which grossly outnumbered?
Well, I think he would speak because there was more interaction on television. It wasn't like he had to get artsy. You didn't have time. So he obviously...
The early 50s, again, he was one of the four. He was just a hired gun, standing in the background, whatever. As time progressed, it got into the 60s and stuff, or late 50s. Then he had bigger roles. The ones I remember are the 2 or 3 that he was on Rifleman. The one, he was a friend of Lucas's at one time and stood with him at the gun down. Another one, he played Johnny Drago or something. He was a gambler Harry was afraid of. But that one, a couple of those were really good. But in those when he was more like the his film version of himself, right. Hired gun, or he had lines. It was a main character.
Just going to go through some of the TV shows here. We just show Annie Oakley, Buffalo Bill Jr. Still scruffy, young, paying his dues on TV, making bit roles. You're right. Whatever work, acting goes in different stages from the decades. And so I think that the 40s and the 50s and the 50s and 60s were different before the independent scene took over in the 70s and stuff. So, I mean, yeah, any work you could get in America. And so he found his niche, obviously, or niche, in the spaghetti Western or Westerns on television. Before he went on to it. So what made him go to it, Mike? Do we know why he decided to make spaghetti Westerns? Was it for money only, or he liked the art?
Well, yeah, keep in mind that spaghetti Western was not a thing in America when he came. Fistful of Dollars, although shot in 1964, didn't hit American shores until 1967. So Lee, he received this personal visit from this guy named Sergio Leone, and Lee Van Cleef, I think, had just gotten out of the hospital, and he was doing occasional TV work, but no film work in the middle 60s. And Tom Betts seems to think he was like some kind of portrait painter. I thought he was a house painter.
I did too, but I've seen pictures of him paint of actual landscapes and stuff. So that's what changed my mind.
I think that's the hobby stuff that came in as a rich person later, though. I think he was probably a house painter. I agree
with you. That's what I thought too in the beginning. Was he was a house painter? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, he getting offered a lead role, and then very famously, he apparently screened Fistful with Clint, and Clint explained how this was a different type of movie, and he would have to give a different type of performance. And it's just amazing that Lee did it first time out of the gate. I mix my sports metaphors and say first time out of the gate, he knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, sure did. Yep.
So he did a slew of these. Casey Jones is another one. Well, it looks like James West. He stole his outfit.
Does, doesn't he? Nice hat.
Oh, yeah. I remember one interview where Lee said that the thing he was proudest of was his TV work. And I don't think he meant the finished product. I think he just was so proud of how quickly they had to make it. And like Tom and I were saying before the show, anytime he appeared on Kit Carson, it was never one, it was two. It was like he would always be in 2 Range Riders or 2 Kit Carsons, these cheap things, because they were shooting 2 at the same time and they were jumping in and out of wardrobe. And, they just had to bang these things out so quickly. And I think Lee was very proud that he was able to do all that.
Mm-hmm. He earned a living, a lawman. I think he did a couple appearances. Tom, you watched these growing up?
Yeah, but I mean, I watched him, but I mean, he was one of these things where if Lee Van Cleef came on screen, you go, oh, that's that guy, that's LBC, whatever, But you didn't pay attention.
When you saw, God, what was it, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea? Did his name stick at that point, or was that just the first time?
Yeah, because when I heard that line, "The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms." And I can pick my teeth with this. I mean, as a kid, But holy crap, that guy, what a line. That's great. And he had that look.
But you made it a point to learn his name?
Because when the film was over, you watched the closing credits and there was his name. And I got to remember that, Lee Van Cleef. And it wasn't hard to remember. It wasn't like Dick Jones, you know. It was Lee Van Cleef. How can you forget that name, you know? So whenever he'd pop up, and again, I don't know what you did when you were writing the book or whatever, we used to get TV guides, and you'd look through the TV guide, and when you saw a Laramie or a rifleman, they would give 3 or 4 people that were in that episode and what they played. And if I saw Lee Van Cleef, I'd say, oh, God, I got to watch Kit Carson this week.
So here's the bummer. Yeah, here's the bummer is that by the time that I was doing that in the 90s, they would only show like Zorro at 2 a.m. They would not say what the episode was. They would not say who the guest star was. So every night when going to bed, and I subscribed to the freaking Disney Channel as a perfectly macho college student trying to see the Zorro appearance. And every night before going to bed, I would set my VCR, the timer on my VCR, and every morning I would check the tape to see, was that the correct Zorro episode? And it never was.
Yeah. The one that I looked for a while was Untouchables, The Guns of Zangara. Apparently they took a couple episodes and actually released it as a film. And he was in that one as an assassin or something of Franklin D. Roosevelt. And that was another one I looked for a long time just to find the Untouchables.
Okay, so how many of those happened? Because I know he was in an episode of Branded that was partnered with another episode and released theatrically as Blade Rider. So
there was at least 3 of them, I think.
Right. Then he appeared on The Rifleman too, a couple times.
Several times. Yeah.
Several times on there. He must have gotten along with Chuck Connors, because I think he was on Rifleman like 5 times and Branded, I think, once or twice. So
yeah.
Right. So no, he continued to be on lots of shows during that time period, in the early 60s. Another one is Cimarron City.
But
yes, Tom.
So the one that I wished had happened was, and I'm going to get the name of it, Mike, was after his career, he came back to the States and he made that one where he was a federal officer and they had that guy on the island under protective custody. And
Nowhere to
remember
Hide.
that? Huh? Nowhere to Hide.
Nowhere to Hide.
That was like that was supposed to be like a series. I wish that had been a series because he was really good in that.
Yeah, it was back when, TV, the cop boom was happening and everybody had like a show called Beretta or Tonk or Toby or, and so Lee's was going to be Scanlon.
Scanlon.
Yeah, and so they did the backdoor pilot of a TV movie called Nowhere to Hide. But instead of having kind of gritty, tough street action, they go to an island for the whole pilot. It just didn't feel like a cop show.
It was like putting him on Alcatraz, like, what's going to happen here?
It was a protective custody thing, and he was protecting him from the mob. But, a desert island, it just didn't have the grittiness that a crime show would have needed to have.
It'd have been better than The Master if they'd have continued that one.
Yeah, totally. And then it would have pleased Jay because he wouldn't have been as far in the grandpa mode.
Right.
For some reason, just rubs Jay the wrong way.
Just don't get me started on those commercials.
The fact that people age rubs Jay the wrong way. He's pro euthanasia, from what I hear.
There you go.
For that, where's Dr. Kevorkian when you need him? So what's funny is I actually like those commercials that he made when he was older, because then he's mocking himself.
Oh yeah, sure. Cheetos commercial.
Where are the Cheetos? Where are the Doritos?
Well, the best ones were the Midas muffler commercials, because they would bring in other. Jack Palance was on there, and
Henry
a
Silva,
bunch of other ones. Yeah, Silva was in there. Yeah. Those were good.
Oh yeah, that's right. The Henry Silva one. I like that one too. So we're
Bo Hopkins was one.
Westerns. He did Gunsmoke a few times, Tom.
Yeah, did Gunsmoke. Looks like Claude Akins there.
Or Hal Holbrook. But did he ever play a bad guy on Gunsmoke?
I'd have to look him up.
I'd venture to say that's probably what he played. Yeah.
Doesn't look like it here though. Like a rancher who's happy to be married.
What's the one where he comes riding in and I think it's John Anderson shoots him. He's a wanted outlaw, and they know he's an outlaw because John Anderson's kids keep all the posters for wanted posters in their room. and that makes John Anderson look like a big hero. But it was Lee Van Cleef that they shot, so he was only in it for like the first 5 minutes of the Gunsmoke.
So
Pass.
The hero versus villain thing raises kind of an interesting point, because I never was able to get in touch with a family member during the writing of my book. But then afterwards, I was introduced to Lee's widow, and I began a phone relationship with her that was very nice. She liked the fact that I don't know if she even liked the book, but I know she liked the fact that that I wrote it when I was 19. That impressed her. And, she not only was a very private person, but, Lee had a booze problem. And I don't think she liked giving interviews because she was worried that might come up. But I did talk to her one time, and she had just had a stroke. And she was kind of having trouble with her words, but she agreed, to my surprise, she agreed to give me a phone interview. And it was like be her first ever phone interview. And I really messed it up really bad, because I should have started, because she wasn't feeling very confident and she had just had the stroke. And I should have started with a very easy question just to get momentum going, something very cut and dried. But instead, I asked her whether she thought he preferred playing heroes or villains. And there was a tough question for her, and she just wasn't doing well with her speech. And so we just called the interview off. I should have started with a much easier question.
You know where he met her, Jay? This is Barbara Hevelone. She was a piano player, concert pianist, but she was a piano player in Stranger and a Gunfighter.
Oh.
And if you see the saloon scene, if it's a broad enough, scope, you can watch. She's the saloon piano player.
And now I found a magazine article from some British magazine or something where Lee was asked whether his wife always attended, and I guess his previous wife would have been Joan. They asked him whether his wife always attended Spanish film sets with him, and he said, yeah, she's coming to Stranger and the Gunfighter with me. So how awkward was that if Lee was starting things with Barbara and ending things with Joan on the same set?
Right.
Yeah. So we continue on, Mike. What did you think about it? You said his TV career, you wouldn't compare it to his movies, right? It's like night and day, basically.
Well, I'm glad that he was proud of it. Again, I think he was most proud that he was just able to crank out dependable, solid work on a TV schedule. I think that really pleased him.
And the longevity of it. 20 years, or almost 20 years, And
he got to work with a lot of different actors. Roger Moore, right, on Maverick, and
James Garner.
Right.
Clint Eastwood, he's on Rawhide 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And then Steve McQueen.
Wanted Dead or Alive, yeah.
So he got to work with a bunch of people.
Yep.
During that time. So
and then in The Master, he was able to bring some of his favorite actors back and make appearances on The Master, like Claude Akins or like Jack Kelly, or like, he was kind of has enough star clout on The Master to like specifies who some of them were guys that he had acted with over and over and over.
There's 2 episodes of The Master. There's one where they go to some ghost town, or it's a Western set, and he gets out of the car and he says, I feel right at home here for some reason. It's a Western set. Another one, he's in a restaurant, and these 2 old women keep looking at him the whole time they're talking and eating dinner. And when he walks over to them at the end, he talks to them a little bit, and they said, Aren't you an actor? And he says, well, no. Says, well, I think you're Clint Eastwood. And what?
Yeah, that's great writing at the time.
Yeah.
So here's that famous The Grave episode from The Twilight Zone. Great shot.
Yeah, and Lee is kind of, even though it's not a voiceover narration, Lee is kind of like the narrator of the episode. He's the guy telling everybody. It's really, really good. It's everybody turns in an amazing performance. It's just great to see these character actors at the top of their game, and all in this, because it's not only just Lee Van Cleef, Lee Marvin, Strother Martin. It's also James Best, who is his co-star in Ride Lonesome. That may have been about it, but yeah, just everybody's a great character.
It's like a Playhouse 90 episode. Had that old Hollywood feel to it,
right?
Without being schmaltzy. It was a very good. It also could have passed for an Alfred Hitchcock Presents episode, because it was the black and white photography and just the whole ambiance of it was It's a classic. A lot of them get overpraised. A lot of the episodes, you know what I'm talking about, while others, I think, fly under the radar, and that's one of them. So he did a Have Gun Will Travel as a gypsy, right, Tom?
No, I don't remember ever seeing him in Have Gun Will Travel. I'm sure he did, but I didn't see the episode.
Mike, of course you saw this episode.
No, I think we're 0 for 3 on this.
Well, anyway, he was channeling Bela Lugosi, and it didn't work. So I'm going through a whole slew of LVC's TV career and stuff. So besides that first album, The Perfect Killer, any other upcoming albums, Mike, to be working on?
Well, that was an aberration for me. Mainly, I'm mainly doing Blu-ray and Blu-ray supplements, that kind of stuff. And then also doing videos for YouTube. I can't stress that enough. Go check out
Go to YouTube. Go see Michael
the address
Lloyd
on YouTube. What is it? What's
the address?
In addition to like Lee Van Cleef's co-stars talking about him, I've got a video about Lee's co-star, video essay type thing that I did about Mark Mazza, who's the Lee's co-star on Grand Duel. I've got a video, mildly controversial in our circles video called I Don't Need to Ever Read Another Effing Word About Sergio Leone. Stuff. It's not all spaghetti Western content, but there's, and I got a pretty good little soundbite from Richard Harrison talking about an earlier edit of Fistful of Dollars. I think Spaghetti Western fans might like that. No, it's not with him. It's just that he had seen before it got yanked out of theaters, re-edited and rescored and put back in theaters. He swears that such a thing existed.
Wow. That's fantastic. As we wrap up, a look at LVC's
There's a Laramie
TV Western career. Laredo, Tom.
Oh, Laredo? Yeah, it is Laredo.
You got the first 3 letters, so
that's right. I did.
With the great Neville Brand in the background.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm surprised he didn't do any spaghetti westerns, Mike.
Why
didn't he?
Yeah, he did Desperados.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
What was up with Neville Brand? All through the 50s and maybe the 60s, he was very portly, and then he just was a walking skeleton in the 70s. What was up with that?
I don't know. He must have got sick.
It was in a movie called The Mad Bomber. We played a pervert. But anyway, it's a great...
You would know about that one, dude.
Yeah,
right.
Don't tell anybody. Anyway, so besides that, let's see. What else can we talk about, Mike? Oh, film I forgot. Oh, I'm so glad I found it. We didn't even mention The Big Gun. Or at least I didn't show the poster for it.
Oh, The Big Gun Down, yeah.
The Big Gun Down, yeah.
Big Gun.
Again, it's just... well, no, that should have been the name of Day. That should have been the alternate title of Day of Anger. Do you remember that ridiculous saloon with those giant wooden guns on the
At
porch?
the entrance? Yeah, exactly.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
I mean, that movie, as much as I like Lee's performance in it, there are so many tacky parts of that movie.
All right. Let's take a look at, we mentioned the aforementioned The Master. Like the last good thing you would think he did was there something after that?
Well,
he did it.
Yeah, no, he did some interesting work during the 80s. What I was going to say is that there was one movie from 88 called The Commander, which I absolutely would have sworn while writing the book that was just a mistake. He had not made a movie called The Commander. It must have been an alternate title for Codename Wild Geese because it had such a similar cast listing. But these books that I was reading just swore that he was in this movie called The Commander. And
you got the notes, Tom. There's living proof.
Contributed to the book is because I had turned in the manuscript, and then Tom sent me this VHS copy and said, yes, there really is a movie called The Commander. And so I watched it, and I slipped in some info about The Commander at the absolute 11th hour after I'd already turned in the manuscript.
Right. Well, let's talk about something else that I find interesting. When they were thinking of casting Captain Picard for the Star Trek reimagining, he was on the short list, wasn't he, Mike?
That was
there's so much stuff every year, every day almost. I find something new on the internet. This is one of the most recent things. Is that some kind of Star Trek website released some stuff from the Gene Roddenberry vault, and Lee Van Cleef is in the running for playing Picard. He says that he's available, and then some of them say available but not interested, and Lee does not say that. So Lee says available. So presumably he was interested in playing the lead in Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Wow.
Wow, that is nuts. Let's see what else we have. So he eventually, what year did he die again, Mike?
1989.
So have you been out to visit the tombstone?
No, I never have. The weird thing about my LA period, I lived in LA from 01 to 04. And I was just kind of over, that was like a closed chapter of my life. And I had not, kind of rebounded from the burnout of researching Lee Van Cleef at the time. And so I did not do a lot of Lee Van Cleef stuff at the time. I did meet some of his co-stars and I interviewed them, but when I interviewed him for magazines and stuff, I didn't even really ask about Lee because I was just I just needed a break from Lee at the time. I regret it now.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I've had the luck even as an actor, I've worked with some of Van Cleef's co-stars. The weird thing is the movie The Squeeze, which was a 1978 crime film that Lee did, because Lee was, of course, had the Dutch surname of Van Cleef. There was also Dan Van Uysen was in the movie, and then there was an actor named Ron Van Cleef, who was also in the actor. So you got in the movie, rather. So you got 3 Van actors in the movie, and I wrote Lee Van Cleef's biography, and then I got to make a Western with Dan Van Uysen, and then I got to make a crime film with Ron Van Cleef. So I got to have the Van trifecta from The Squeeze.
And he was driving a van at the time.
Well, yeah, that's the thing with Lee Van Cleef, Timothy Van Patten, and the van that they drive in for the master. It was a very Van show.
Yeah, I guess so. It's kind of like that Jimmy McNichol short-lived show, California Dreamin' or something like that.
It's also kind of like
anyway.
Cord and the Cord Bunch, starring Alex
right,
Cord and Cord
That's
McCord.
right.
Alex Cord is
McCord.
McCord. So we went over Lee's spaghetti western, his American western, and his TV career, vast. So I mean that's why Tom's tome, or is it tome A, is so large, and it would take how many years to read, Tom, if you were to start today?
No, all the stuff that I've got, couple days. Couple days. You're not gonna read every word.
If you say so.
All right, so here's the absolute latest thing that I've learned on Lee. A friend of mine, Chris Poggiali, he sent me this court case where a bunch of dentists and doctors and stuff apparently formed an LLC, and they were going to bring over Beyond the Law in 1974. And I think that they were going to use it as a tax write-off because I think they knew that Beyond the Law was a dud. And I think they overpaid for it or something like that relative to, and then they dumped it in some drive-ins. And so he sent me this court case, which you can find online, because, there's, in addition to magazines and all kinds of stuff's being archived online, court cases are also, summary judgments and all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
Are all
divorce
online.
Cases. Yep.
Yep. Yeah. It was fascinating to see that.
Well, we learned when Dan Van Uysen passed away, there was some confusion of when.
Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, wait.
No, it's playing in the background, Tom.
When Dan Van Uysen died, there was a lot of misinformation of where he died, when he died, all that kind of stuff. And Dan had stayed with me twice over the years because we was doing a film called The Scarlet Worm that Mike was involved with, and that's when I actually met Mike. And so I picked him up the second time that he was out here. Dan was staying with his sister who lived in Woodland Hills. So for some reason, she got in touch with me after Dan had passed away and gave me the information of when he died and where it was, and that she had talked to Bob Halifeld. How do you pronounce their last names?
Avalone?
Avalone, yeah. And that's Barbara's brother. And I think he's in Pancho Villa. Anyways, she mentioned to me that Barbara had passed away. and that's the first we had known about it, that she had moved to Sedona, Arizona after Lee died and sold the house, and she and her brother went over there and lived in Sedona. Apparently, they moved back to Santa Monica, and she passed away, what did I say, Mike, like 2 years ago, 2018 or something like that. And I could not find no bit or death or anything about her, about Barbara at all. Yeah. So,
Tom, I may be telling tales out of school here a little, but Tom, I remember when I met Tom over the phone in 96 or 97, I remember being impressed by what an incredible Lee Van Cleef fan he was, because you even drove past the house and you said you spied what was in the garbage. Not that you rooted through the garbage. And again, I hope you don't mind. I hope I don't. No. I'm not, but yeah, you said that
he lived in Tarzana. I lived in Northridge.
Yeah.
So Jay, he was south of the boulevard, and I drove up to the street he was on. I got the address from Rob Word, and he lived in a typical San Fernando Valley ranch house up on a little hill with a horseshoe driveway, no gates, no fences. And down at the bottom of the driveway was this huge sign that said LVC Studios or something.
Detective agency, you said.
Yeah,
LVC Detective Agency, as if the kids had made it. The kids had made it like for a birthday present or some kind of
right.
Yeah.
And I was going, do I stop and throw this in the car? What do I do? You know? And I said, I'll just skip it. But I mean, I wish I'd got, like you, a lot of times. I wish I'd go back and get it.
Well, I don't have any regrets about not being a stalker, Tom. So I don't think we're in the same ballpark there.
Right. So we're just showing some stuff in the background. So as far as new projects, Mike, what have you been working on?
Oh, just more of the same. Like Eric Zaldivar, whom you should have on the show. He's a contemporary of mine. He and I have collaborated on some screenplays. He and I originated the official Django sequel, Django Lives, which and Tom was an early supporter of that. There's just various feature filmmaking endeavors, but I'm really happy to be in this kind of Blu-ray world right now because it's smaller, more realistic stuff that I can actually push out. The big stuff, there's no budgets to be had right now, and everybody's so freaking dysfunctional that it's so tough to work with other people right now anyway. So the Blu-ray stuff is just kind of nice. That's my comfort zone right now.
Oh, okay. Tom, what are you working on these days besides lunch?
Oh, some podcast that comes on once a week. I sleep the other 6 days.
That hack job, I try to stay away.
I sleep the other 6 days.
Right. So are you going to join us in our autograph of the day showing, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys told me to have a bunch of stuff on hand. Like you said, record of the day and book of the day. And
right.
For book of the day, I guess I could go with this masterpiece.
No, brother.
Oh, okay. So what should we do for? Book of the day first? Book of the week?
Yeah, let's do book of the day.
Okay, Tom, you go ahead.
Well, I've got 2 books of the day. That's
bless you.
Okay.
This is the cover of the paperback, which is available now, but I've got one of the original hardbound copies.
Bravo. Thank you.
Even an extra autograph of the day. It's even autographed by Mike Mallory. I'm sorry, Mac Malloy.
It's a common mistake.
And then we have to show this one, Mike. I'm sorry, you did write the foreword to it, but please, if you've got a choice, even budget-wise, get Mike's book. Don't get this one. This one's, like Mike calls it, the pamphlet version. So that's my book of the day for the week.
That was actually Tom Priquette's nickname for it, just for the record.
I understand.
Okay, Mike, what's your book of the day besides your own?
No. I'm gonna go with the Tom Betts masterpiece.
Oh, you did that? Okay, there's the full.
No, this is Tom Betts's hybrid / manuscript / I mean, it, kind of homemade, but it was staple bound, and I have now reinforced it with tape. But no, this is a labor of love. This is a work of love. This is Tom Betts, in pre-internet, whenever 1991, maybe making his homemade Lee Van Cleef book. It's impressive stuff.
He's got the only copy in the world, right there.
And it's going to stay that way too.
That's right.
So let's move on to album of the week. Mike, did you bring something besides?
No, I brought something very self-promotional.
Okay, what
That's
you
good.
got?
There you go.
Where should people go get that?
Who's the composer? Silvio Cipriani?
Silvio Cipriani. Yeah, incredibly sleazy funk score. It's just unbelievable. It's just dripping with sleaze.
Is it like a Franco Jean Roland score?
72% sleazier.
Nice. Okay, Tom, what's your LP or album of the week?
Well, staying with the subject matter.
Nice.
Bravo.
Day of Anger by Riz Ortolani. And this is a, I like
that 3D shot right there.
1970 LP. It's on RCA, LSO 1165. Stereo, 11 tracks. Price varies from either $30 sealed version to $11 on eBay.
And that score turned up again in Reason to Live, Reason to Die, didn't it?
Yeah, it was also in the Django Quentin Tarantino movie, too. He shoots the snowman.
Oh, I see. And Tom, we're forgetting one more. Which one is that? It's Autograph of the Week, Tom.
Autograph of the Week?
Well, since I showed a bunch last week, I'm going to let Tom and Mike do the honors. So, Tom.
Well, I already showed you Mike Malloy.
Just a minute, Tom. From the actor's old age home out in Whittier. What do you got, Tom?
Well, I already showed you Mike Malloy, but I've got a...
What is that?
Lee Van Cleef.
On a piece of paper, Tom.
I made a photocopy of it because mine is hanging on the wall.
Let me ask you a question. So you knew where he was going to be, and you didn't have a photo or anything. You didn't have time. So you just printed that out. You saw Lee somewhere, right?
No, I didn't. I got this from somebody else. I think I got it from Don.
Okay, I was like, wow.
No, I didn't.
That's having no time to get somewhere, Tom.
Yeah.
You're going to be a book soup. You better print that out.
We drove up, my brother took me in his car and drove up to the front of Lee's house, but I wasn't going to go to the door.
Oh, that's too bad.
Closest I got.
All right, Mike, autograph of the week.
Yeah, so when I moved to LA, I became one of the staffers. I became an associate editor of Cult Movies magazine.
Wait a minute, Buddy Barnett? I know Buddy very well.
With Mike Kopner and Buddy Barnett, yes.
Awesome.
And so I one of my first interviews for the magazine was Lee Van Cleef's co-star in Kansas City Confidential, Colleen Gray. And I interviewed her at a convention, and then the Cult Movies people bumped into her at another convention, one that I was not able to attend. But they brought over the issue for her, and yeah, she I think is the only time I've ever had somebody autograph an article of mine.
There you go.
Bravo! There we go. Yes.
Wow.
Very cool.
Get my brain to think in reverse here.
Did she ever contact you after reading the article?
No, it's just only a 2-page article. It's pretty slight. And like I said, I was kind of like burnt out on Lee Van Cleef, so I didn't even ask her in particular about Lee Van Cleef.
That's blasphemous, Mike.
And, I regret it now, but I did, plenty of stars. I've managed to get in Lee Van Cleef questions. I just wish of all the people that Lee Van Cleef directors and co-stars and stuff that I met after the book was done, I got about half of their anecdotes on camera, and the other ones I really, really wish I would have gotten on camera because I've heard some interesting stuff, but just didn't document it.
Okay. Mm-hmm. No, that's cool. And then before we get to news of the week or the weekly news, I'm going to first, I guess, thank the people who make this possible, Tom. The SPW Spaghetti Western fan base and internet and Facebook pages, YouTube channels, who I promote on and they appreciate, and they don't ban me yet, but it's still early, Tom. Maybe by the 30th episode, I won't be.
We've only done 25 episodes, yeah.
Right.
It's early.
This is the 25th, and Mike, once again, we couldn't be happier to have you on the show. By the way.
Oh, thank you guys.
And we always give a big shout out to the one and only Sebastian Hasselbeck of the Spaghetti Western database, all your needs. The website Tom Betts uses daily. Don't know if that's still there, so that's a rare screenshot, Tom.
Tim Ferrani said he had it changed.
Oh, okay. I think it says the website that everybody uses.
So.
Yeah. But anyway, anything you need to know outside of Tom's Spaghetti Westerns blog.
Or Mike Malloy's YouTube.
There you go. We'll get that. I will post that on the blog. Don't worry, Mike. You got it. I'll find the address and link it.
Don't you worry. Tom will take care of you. So, of course, this is, you can see this here on Facebook. And Mike Malloy has been our wonderful guest as always. And you can always check us every week, Fridays at noon Pacific, 3 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock
Europe,
and 8 o'clock in
England.
the UK.
Yep.
For another wonderful episode of this show. We're going to be episode 26 next week. Coming up in future episodes, we're having authors Mike House and who else, Tom?
Tony Williams from Opera Violence.
That's
Professor
right.
Tony Williams.
Right, and then after that, Rod Dana will be joining.
We're working on him.
Finally heard back from Rod Dana, and I've now just got to book the time frame. So we got lots of guests here. We've had Brett Halsey, we've had Robert Woods, right, Tom?
That's right.
Who else did we have? Claudia,
Howard Hughes, Lee Broughton, Howard Bruckner,
that's
Mike
right.
Malloy,
what's Mike
Daniel,
Tim Ferrani,
Daniel.
What's the pronunciation of his last name?
Daniel Camargua.
Right. Tom's been hitting the sauce this afternoon. Anyway, so no, thank you to our good friend Mike Malloy for stopping by. And Tom, you got some news for us?
Yeah, finally got some releases. I'm going to hold this up so you can give me the full screen, man.
Oh, okay. Tom's directing.
We got some DVD and Blu-ray releases finally. New Blu-ray release of God Said to Cain, 1969, directed by Anthony Dawson, starring Klaus Kinski, Peter Karsten, Antonio Canafora, Marcello Michelangeli, on the Gold Ninja Video label. This is in English, runs 99 minutes. It's with commentary and extras. Also includes a second feature, The Moment to Kill, also 1967, directed by Anthony Ascott, starring George Hilton, Walter Barnes, and Horst Frank. Now, I just found out about this week. It's been out since September 22nd, and it's only 300 copies, limited edition. So go to the Gold Ninja Video label website and order it there. Another one that just came out on today is a Japanese DVD release of Cutthroats 9, 1972, directed by Joaquin Luis Romero Marchant, starring Robert Hundar, Emma Cohen. It's on TC Entertainment, Region A. It's in English with Japanese subtitles. It's the remastered 2015 version, US. Extras include a 12-page booklet. Like I said, it came out today. And the last one, which really isn't a spaghetti western, is German DVD and Blu-ray, Der Teufel kennt kein Halleluja, also known as Trinity Sees Red, 1970, directed by Mario Camus, starring Terence Hill, Maria Grazia Bucella, Mario Pardo, and is on the Cinema Classics Entertainment Mara Music Live label. It's in German with Spanish, no subtitles, running time 100 minutes. It came out today. As far as passings are concerned, the biggest one, of course, was Sean Connery, who died in his sleep during the night of October 30th to 31st in the Bahamas. He was 90. Connery rocketed to fame as James Bond and became one of the most popular and enduring international stars of all time. He was knighted by Queen Elizabeth II in 2000 and marked his 90th birthday in August. Connery appeared in one Euro Western as the star of Shalako, 1968. Also passing away was Gigi Proietti, who died in Rome on his birthday, November 2nd, 2020, from heart failure. He was 80. He studied law before embarking on a long and highly successful career in theater, film, TV and music in the early 1960s. Gigi was also known for his dubbing work, where we will know him from being the Italian voice of actors such as Robert De Niro and Sean Connery. He also had a long association with Rome's Globe Theater. Rietta's European Western career included being the Italian voice of Robert Mark in Kill or Die, Massimo Serrato in The Magnificent Texan, Craig Hill in The 15 Scaffolds for a Killer, Gino Pernice in The Hellbenders, Benito Stefanelli in Day of Anger, and Luigi Pistilli in Death Rides a Horse, all 1967. And Scottish actor John Sessions died November 3rd, 2020 in London of a heart attack. John was born January 11th, 1953 in Largs, Ayrshire, Scotland. He was best known for his appearances on the British TV shows Whose Line Is It Anyway?, Have I Got News for You?, and QI. He played Flight in 1986's Sky Bandits. Here's one for you, Jay. Don Morrow, best known as a television game show host announcer and voiceover, passed away peacefully in his sleep on October 27th, just shy of his 94th birthday. Get a load of this, Mike. He was best known as the announcer of Alan Ludden's Password and GE
The
College.
password is Malloy.
He was the English voice on the trailers for the first 4 Sergio Leone movies. So when you hear that, this man wears this short cigar belongs to this man with no name, blah blah blah.
Well,
it's the first movie of its last. It won't be the last. That's his voice.
And then hilariously, they had switched to calling him Sergio Leone for a few dollars more. And so I like the trailer for that, where it said, you got to know him as Bob Wells.
Yeah.
Now get to know him as Sergio Leone.
There you go. Yeah.
That sounds like Ted Cassidy again.
There we go.
And here's the crazy thing is that I wanted to study voiceover. And so I did some of the workshops at Don Morrow, not knowing that he had a spaghetti Western Lee Van Cleef connection. Yep. It was very cool.
I never knew that either until he passed away, and they mentioned in the obit. And I looked up on his own link on the internet, and there it is. He listed as doing the voiceover for him. Birthdays this week. We have Dermot Mulrooney, turned 57, October 31st. Maribel Martin turned 66 on November 1st. You know who she is, Mike?
Tell me.
Maribel Martin. She played the little Mormon girl on Big Gun Down.
Ah, interesting.
Yes, she's 66. Charles Bronson would have been 89.
Sarah is my third wife.
That's it. That's it. Charles Bronson would have been 89 on the 3rd.
That's right.
Harris Yulin turned 83 on November 5th. Elkie Summer turned 80 on November 5th. Daniela Giordana turned 74 on November 7th. That's tomorrow. And on this Sunday is Alain Delon. He'll be 85. And Jay's favorite, Leif Garrett, turns 59 on November 8th.
Go Leif.
You owe me 65 bucks.
Yeah.
So can either of your brains reconcile the fact that Harris Yulin's girlfriend was Faye Dunaway?
Oh, really? From the
before the movie or
after?
Isn't that crazy?
Before Doc?
I mean, I guess I'm assuming they met on Doc, but
yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Do you know this? Someone asked me, is his voice dubbed on Doc? I don't know Harris Yulin enough to know.
I've only seen Doc once, never again. But yeah, you've seen Harris Yulin in tons of Hollywood movies, surely, right?
He always Stacy Keach.
I don't pay attention to the voices, back and forth like that.
Oh, you mean Stacy Malloy Keach?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
That's right.
I got it.
One shout out, Jay. Got a shout out to Richard Quarren, British bluesman, who's helping me on a project.
Nice. I didn't know you sing the blues, Tom.
I don't. Country Western all the way.
Anyway, so that I think concludes our show, episode 25, with the great author, actor, supplement, superstar, Mike Malloy. You can go to YouTube, but it's not who is it not the Mike Malloy that we shouldn't be looking for?
Despite this microphone in front of me, it is not the radio host Mike Malloy. It is the tough guy film expert Mike Malloy. And I know Tom Betts says there's no such thing as experts, but I've put in my 10,000 hours. So
yes, he has. And because we have a shrine of Tom back here, so we always.
He is a Lee Van Cleef expert, so
right.
You're right.
Okay, So thank you once again out in Facebook and YouTube land for joining us. We'll see you next Friday. Same Spaghetti Western time, same Spaghetti Western channel. For Mike Malloy, Tom Betts, who always says,
Well, I got to do Mike Moy's pointing his finger out. That's the official.
let's all do it.
I can't get in the phone. I can't get in there.
See you next week on Once Upon a Time with Tom Betts.